No. I think Ivan can go now. I will hand it over the mic to Ivan. Thank you very much for joining, and yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Ramin. So before I start, could you please tell me how much time do I have for my presentation?
I believe you have about 20 minutes.
20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
20, 25, okay. Thank you. So, hey guys, nice to present to all of you today. Thank you for joining us. So before I proceed with what PARSIQ actually does and what we could accomplish with that, could you please write maybe a few words about yourself in the chat, like whether you are a developer or maybe a CTO or maybe an analyst, like what do you do, so that I will be able to specify my presentation and demonstration a bit more to the audience. Yeah, so PARSIQ recently partnered with Metis, and we are pretty happy about that. And what PARSIQ does is PARSIQ brings blockchain data to the user, because as you might know, the blockchain data it's basically public. It can be accessed through nodes and other things, but basically to do so, you will need the infrastructure. You will need either your own node or an RPC node access or a data indexer such as PARSIQ. So in case you don't want to host all this infrastructure on your own hardware, and in case you need fast and reliable data, you most probably, in search for blockchain data, will go for a data indexer such as PARSIQ. So what does PARSIQ do? PARSIQ provides users who are basically developers or blockchain companies with blockchain data. It includes raw data such as transfers, native transfers, ERC20 and NFTs, transactions, including internal transactions like transactions between smart contracts and between EOA, external addresses as well. It provides information about the events with all the logs and function calls and all the other stuff. Yeah, so we have a question in the chat. Is PARSIQ like Alchemy? I would say, yeah, like Alchemy is one of our competitors. And yeah, Alchemy is also a data index. It also provides an API to get the data. What PARSIQ does, it brings you the data both historically, in case you need to look at the history of the blockchain of interest, such as Metis, for instance, or it also works in real time. So in case you need notifications or some data to be pushed, let's say, to your dashboard to notify your users, it's also possible, and PARSIQ does it via webhooks. And also, PARSIQ allows not only working with raw data, such as the data that can be found in the block, but also custom data logic. So let's say you need a balance of a certain wallet for a certain token. You can't find that information in the block or in the transaction. You can find only the information about how much was transferred. So in order to know the actual balance, you will need to go through the whole history of the blockchain, calculate how much was added and subtracted, and after that, you can get the actual balance. This is the simple example. More complicated examples are also available, such as TVLs for pools, or some APYs, or some other examples for your own smart contract and for your own logic, such as an example that we will take a look at today, which is the voting system that Rami just shared. So these are PARSIQ technical capabilities, and let's also discuss what it can be used for from the use case standpoint. So a lot of our clients use us to power their graphic interfaces, dashboards with data. So let's say you are a wallet or you are some kind of DeFi protocol. So you want to be able to show your user how much funds they got, what transactions they've had, and so on. So this data can be acquired from PARSIQ. Another example is getting data in bulk for analytics. For instance, if you want to look for some trading trends or if you want to analyze the usage of your DeFi protocol, or and so on. And also it can be used for machine learning, so you can download like a bunch of transactions in as a CSV file and feed it to your machine learning scheme. Yeah, also, as I have mentioned, we have real-time data, so we can also power your application with notifications using PARSIQ notifications about certain events or transactions bigger than a certain number or whatever. And also you can use it as a B2D blockchain explorer, so the same way you're using blockchain explorers in browser to take a look at smart contracts and transactions and so on. The same way you can use PARSIQ to explore blockchains from your scripts or from your code and power your code with that data. So yeah, that being said, I believe I can go straight to the technical demo. So please feel free to ask any type of questions in the chat. Also, feel free to request some particular use cases. So in case you're, for instance, interested in a specific DeFi pool on Metis chain, or you want to, let's say you have your own smart contract on Metis chain and you want to monitor some events there, please feel free to share that in the chat. We will be happy to share that in our demo. If not, I have examples of my own, and let me proceed with that. Okay, so I will share my screen. Share screen. Entire screen. Share. Okay, and please, yeah, thank you so much. So let us start with a simple example. So this is our API reference. I will give all the links to our docs, to our API reference, to everything in the final slide. So to get just the access to API, we need to go to docs PARSIQ, and that's what we do here. So let's take a look at a simple example. So here I have the contract deployed by Rami. And let's take a look at some events here. For instance, we got this first event. So on this blockchain explorer, we don't have the decoded information, such as the names of functions. Still, we have what we need here, which is topic 0. So since we are about to monitor an event, we will need topic 0. But also, since we're going to monitor an event on a particular smart contract, we will need the address of this smart contract as well. So here I'm choosing the chain to work with. So our choice right now is Metis mainnet Andromeda. And let me enter the contract address here. And let me also specify topic 0. So to specify topic 0, let me show you this again. This works the same way on Etherscan and other chains. So let's go to, we see this is the page of the smart contract of interest. We see our transactions here. Let's pick this one. And if we go to logs, we will be able to see all the events happening during this transaction, and we will be able to see the topics, including topic 0, which is exactly what we're looking for. So let me put topic 0 here, and let me try it. Yeah, so what I did was I asked PARSIQ for all the events with this topic 0 on this smart contract, and here is its response. So it gives us several events, and for each event it has all the topics, like topic 0, topic 1. It doesn't. These events don't have topic 2, topic 3. It has the transaction hash, block number, timestamp, opcode, the origin of the transaction, and the contract which origin interacted. So yeah, that's how we get the data about events for PARSIQ. using PARSIQ Tsunami API. And let me show you other endpoints. So what data is available here? We have raw data on blocks, so we can specify, let's say, we can get the latest block, for instance, or we can get a block using block hash. So let's get the latest block on Metis chain. For that, we need to just specify Metis chain. And yeah, in that case, we can get all the raw block data here. Other things that are possible with the PARSIQ Tsunami API are transactions. We can see a transaction on a wallet. We can take a transaction by its hash. We can see transaction logs, for instance. Sorry, I misclicked. Yeah, transaction logs. So we can get pretty granular data here, and I don't think other solutions provide more granular data than PARSIQ. Basically, PARSIQ gives you everything that is on the blockchain. Okay, so also we have transfers, native currency transfers, ERC20 token transfers, NFT transfers. Also, we can monitor contract self-destructs and contract creates. Also, we can upload the API of the contract to get its data in the decoded format. And also, we can get the data in real time. For that purpose, we need to set up real-time filters, and we will get the notifications using webhooks. Yeah, also, we got such things as the NFT data lake and balances data lake. And here I will need to dive a bit into what the data lake is. So what I showed you before here, this is raw data accessible via the Tsunami API. And raw data is the data, as I have mentioned previously, in the form in which it is available in the block. So in the block, we have like function calls, events, transfers, and all the other stuff, but we don't have accumulated values such as balances, who holds which NFTs, who got how many votes, and so on. So in order to process accumulated data, we build data lakes. For now, we have two public data lakes, which are NFT data lake, giving information about NFTs like metadata, ownership data, transfers, holdings, and so on. And we got balances data lake, which gives information about ERC20 tokens, like the balance of the set address or the holders of the set token. But the power of the data lakes is they can be custom, and basically, I would say this is the deepest and the most important part of my today's presentation is our SDK and custom data lake. So obviously, you can just call Tsunami API from your script. You can, for instance, if you're using Python, you can copy paste the resulting query right here, or you can choose any other language as well. But if you want to build a more complicated solution, like let's say in our example, we need to provide the user with the data on voting, and we will need to count these votes and return the number of votes for each candidate to the user in our interface. So for that purpose, we will try to build a data lake using our SDK. So as I have said, I will share the link to our SDK documentation in the last slide. So in case you want to try it yourself, you will be able to do so. But right now, just let me show you how the data lake works for this simple use case. So a data lake is basically a database. So in case you build a data lake using SDK, this database will be hosted on your machine. And right now I will show how it can be done. This database with the logic for the calculations based on the events emitted on the blockchain, it's running on your machine as an application, and it gets all the data from PARSIQ Tsunami API. So it calls Tsunami API, gets all the data, and puts it in the database in the form that you specify. So let us talk a bit about what we have here. I believe Remy has already shown the logic of this contract. So we have candidates, we have votes, and we need to know how much votes each candidate has. We will be monitoring these two events, which is a vote event and new candidate event. They have candidate ID, a name, and number of votes, and they correspond to two functions. So in add candidate function, a new candidate event is emitted, and in vote function, vote event is emitted. So based on these events, we will monitor which candidate gets how many votes, what number of votes, and we will be accumulating it in our database. Let me show you the code. So you will get the structure of the project and the actual example code in the docs. So don't be scared. I didn't write all that from scratch because basically I'm not that much of a developer. I just copy pasted it and changed it according to the smart contract that I'm working with currently. Let's just go from top to bottom and you will understand what's happening here. So here we just include all the dependencies, make sure you install them correctly. Yeah, also let me share the documentation with you. I believe it should be somewhere here. Yeah, so and let me explain what's happening here. I believe I got like 5 more minutes, and I think it will be enough. So here I import the API of the contract under consideration. So in our case, it's a voting system, JSON. This API, I took it from here, from Remy's repository. You can see it here. And when it says API, from here and to the end of this bracket, you copy paste it, you create a separate file such as voting system JSON, and that way your data lake will know how to interact with your smart contract, what event it has, what function it has, and so on. The next thing you'll need is Tsunami API key. And I believe I just disclosed my own private Tsunami API key, so I will definitely change it after this presentation. So how do you get it? You go to your PARSIQ dashboard. It can be found here, and the link will be in the last slide. And in order to copy paste it, you just regenerate it, and you will be able to copy paste it here. So that's the next thing we need. Also, we specify the chain, so it might be Ethereum mainnet. In our case, it's Metis mainnet. After that, we specify the data on the contract, such as a contract address and the topics 0 of the events under consideration. And after that, we specify the block from which we want to track the events on this smart contract, because obviously, like if we deployed smart contract yesterday, we don't need to go through all the history of the blockchain. We just need to go from the block when it was deployed. The next thing is, I believe, is one of the most important things here, because it's the layout of our database. So we need to think hard on what we need to put here. Fortunately, our current example is pretty straightforward. So it's simple. It's the candidate ID, which is number, the name of the candidate, which is a string, and the number of votes, which is number again. Just ignore this one for now, because it's like for more complicated examples. After that, we specify the events, the types of events that we will be monitoring, like in terms of our TypeScript script, not in terms of Solidity, because we need to know what data we will be getting from them. And after that, we won't, I did not change this part. So basically, we don't need to discuss it for now. It's just copy pastable. And the next thing to change is to add our topic 0 here of our events. And as you can see, in this switch case, we call different functions for different events. So in case our topic 0 for our event matches the new candidate event, then we go to process new candidate event function, or we go to process vote event function. Yeah, and here, this is also more or less standard part, and you won't need to change. And an interesting part is here. So this is our key value storage. So this will be the key, and the key will be the candidate ID of the decoded event. Yeah, only as a string, because a key in this structure must be a string, not a number. And the value will be a structure of this type that will hold the number, which is candidate ID, the name of the candidate, and number of votes. So whenever there is a new candidate event, we create a new record in our database, which key is the candidate ID, and the value is all the information about the candidate with 0 count number of votes, because we just added this candidate. And then when we have a vote event, we describe this logic here. So what happens here is we take the current number of votes and we add the number of votes from the decoded event to the current number of votes, thus calculating the number of votes. I believe I'm running out of time here, but basically I have shown you all the code that I wanted to show, and now let's just make sure that this code works. So let me build it first. Cool. And now let me run Docker that will set up the databases and start scraping blockchain data. So it will start do the historical work starting from the block that I specified. And when it's done with historical data, it will be working in real time, getting the real time. So here you can see the number of block that it's currently working with. As you can see, it's the work in progress, so the number of block changes. Let me go to this database here. So here I have data grid connected to my database created by the data lake. And let's take a look at this table, candidate entities. As you can see, for now it's open. It's empty because the block, we haven't reached the block where the stuff happens yet. So let us wait for, I believe, maybe a minute, and it will go to the block that we need, and it will add the data and show us the count of the votes. Yeah, probably I will need to speed it up a bit. So let me do the following. Let me get the last block here. Yeah, so this will be the number of the block we're interested in. Let me put it here. Let's rebuild the project. And now let's run our data lake again. Yeah, cool. Now let's update it here, and we will see the events happened and being stored in our databases. Okay, yeah, probably we will need to wait a bit more because we haven't reached the block of interest yet. But I don't think we have the time for that now. Remy, do we have like a minute or two, or do we need to go?
Let me
You can
see.
extend it like a minute. It's okay.
Okay. So Kat said, yeah, we can have a couple more minutes. I hope that's enough.
Yep, it is. It is. I will just run our data lake again to make sure it shows us all the data that we need. So again, I will check the number of the block to make sure I didn't mess up here. So it was this one, right? Okay, and let me run the data lake again. Okay, now we can see that the data lake managed to get all the data correctly. So we have two candidates here. So as you can remember, Remy also added me, but we will see me later when the data lake scraps all the data from the latest block, because now we had just started with on the block where the first of the events were emitted. And you can see what we have here. So first of all, we have the changes that were made. You can see that there were added like Kevin and Remy. And also you can see the current values. So the number of votes for Remy is currently 0, and for Kevin it's currently for 500, I believe, according to the number of zeros. So so let me recap what we were doing here. We were monitoring the events on the smart contract, the new candidate events and the voting events. We added the new candidates to our database. And when we saw a voting event, we updated their number of votes according to this event. And that's basically a super simple example, but it shows us that using PARSIQ SDK, you can build whatever blockchain data logic you need. You can set up thresholds, you can set up complicated logic, calculations, all inside of this data lake description, and it will provide you with the data that you need, be it the number of votes, or the APY, or the TVL, or some values that you want to calculate and show in your dashboard for your own application. At this point, I will stop sharing the screen, and I will ask the colleagues to show the last slide. I mean, the last of my slides.
All right. Oh, here.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, May. And so please find the docs. The first link is the one that will lead you to our API reference that I showed you. The second one is about PARSIQ on Metis. The third one is the docs for our SDK. So using the third link, you could basically reproduce what I've shown you here with the voting system. And in case you guys have any interest in SDK, and in case you try it, or in case you have any questions about the API, please feel free to contact me in Telegram. So this is my Telegram handle. And basically, I will be super happy about any feedback on the SDK.
All right.
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you very much, Ivan. Very awesome presentation. Really love PARSIQ always.
Thank you,
so also,
it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Also, don't forget to claim your attendance badge after 2 days. And the developers Telegram, you can join it, ask any questions. I will be there. Just ping me, Tom Cruise, that's my handle. The GitHub template, just take a real quick screenshot of this. It's a very valuable piece. It will be very useful for you. This is what I wrote for helping you to deploy a smart contract on Metis chain. And the Discord, you can join the Discord, but it's always better to be on Telegram. I will be 100% there. Thank you very much, everyone who watched, and thank you, Ivan, so much. Thank you, PARSIQ.